Alrighty. I've been seeing this article make the rounds, and I want to take a crack at reading it and see what I can ascertain from it. Because I am a Sonic the Hedgehog fan. So much so that I, in fact, am part of a podcast talking exclusively about Sonic the Hedgehog called Sunset City with game apologist Channel Pup and Wayne as boss. So, this dropped a couple days ago. It's called 30 Years of Sonic the Hedgehog, the Many Faces of Mario's Biggest Rival. Now, from a title like that, it would seem completely benign. But if you've spent any time on what we'll loosely call the Sonic fandom Twitter, this article has not been received well. And I want to see why. Before we do that, though, Loki the Tire Trickster, thank you very much for redeeming your points for an oh well. Oh well. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and take a look at the article here. So, it begins with a timeline of Sonic the Hedgehog. Proper Sonic. From the Mega Drive years. It says here, now, some will dispute the assignment of the label Proper Sonic. Yeah, I would as well. But they're all wrong. This is Sonic at the very apex of his powers. 2D platforming utilizing momentum that's never been equaled or convincingly imitated. Okay, I guess you've never played Sonic Mania. He just hasn't played Sonic Mania. I see that it's mentioned here, but we'll take a look here. The original Sonic the Hedgehog and its 2.5 sequels, Sonic & Knuckles, only sort of counts as a full game. Still looks and play great to this day. Hence the excitement for the upcoming Sonic Origins, which also includes the misunderstood masterpiece, Sonic the Hedgehog CD. Oh no. Just by reading that part alone, I already know I'm in for some shit. Alright, now why am I saying that? Why am I saying that? Okay, so does anybody here remember Screw Attack? Okay, like old Screw Attack. Like when all they did was top 10 lists, and it was Handsome Tom and Stuttering Craig. If anybody remembers that era of online, like, video game coverage stuff, their top 10 lists were a thing that people look forward to a lot. Okay? Now, one of these top 10 lists were the top 10 Sonic the Hedgehog games, in which the trope began. Chow Mix made a wonderful video talking about this trope, but I'm going to talk about it right now. The trope of, boy howdy, Sonic the Hedgehog sure has had a rough transition into 3D. Despite the fact that Sonic Heroes is a perfectly functional game, despite the fact that Sonic Adventure is a perfectly functional game, despite the fact that Adventure 2 is a perfectly functional game, despite the fact that the problems really didn't start in full as far as, like, games that just felt terrible to play until about Sonic 06. And even then, people are singing that game's praises now because there are people with nostalgia goggles for it. And even I, when I played that game now, go, oh, wow, with a little more time in the oven, this could have been fine. But this trope of 3D Sonic being Le Terrible began around this time. So much so that I think Adventure 1 was, like, on the list, and that was about it. And the whole point on Adventure 1 was, wow, Sonic controlled well in this game. Why can't he control well in other games? Despite, again, Adventure 2 and Heroes and other games existing that he controls perfectly fine in. Anywho, the top game in that list was Sonic the Hedgehog CD. And it was noted as the best Sonic game of all time. Now, to give you a little bit of a time capsule, okay, so you know about what was going on around that time, you could not play Sonic CD if you were the normal, average, breathing human being. Because Sonic CD existed only on the Sega CD, which sold abysmally. There were less Sega CDs than there were Wii U's. So Sega CD exclusive games were like the niche of cult games. Despite the fact Sonic CD was like the one reason you bought a Sega CD. Now, It wasn't until that game came out on the GameCube and PS2's Sonic Gems collection that people would start being able to play Sonic CD and actually figure out what a busted mess of a game it actually is. And this is coming from somebody that has learned to appreciate that game the more that I play it, but it still feels like a very clunky mess that learned all the wrong lessons from Sonic 1. And if you want to hear a full breakdown on what I think about that game, then please go check out Sunset City, where all 4 of us give our breakdowns of Sonic CD. We played through the game all and then did an entire breakdown of it. Point is, it's not a misunderstood masterpiece. I'm sorry. That game is held together by tape, and despite the fact that I am learning to enjoy it more, also thank you very much for the follow, King of Dairy Milk, when people are starting to sing its praises so much that they're dissing on all the 3D games that function better and are more well realized, I know where I'm going, because I've been here before. Now, goes on to say, it's telling we think that it took a direct lift of these classics in Sonic Mania for the series to achieve unanimous critical acclaim again following its early 90s heyday. Yay! Now, let's ignore the fact that Sonic Colors did this in 2011, because I distinctly remember when that game came out, everybody was singing its praises to high heaven, and Sonic Generations doing the exact same thing when that came out afterwards. Now, this article was written after Sonic Forces, so we get to sit in this lovely little area where everybody gets to shit on Sonic because the last game was bad, despite the fact that Forces and Mania came out the same year. Now, it then goes on to talk about 8-bit Sonic. It would be remiss of us to acknowledge the rather underrated 8-bit Sonic games, especially their Master System incarnations, which we'd argue are at the very least thoroughly playable and aurally wonderful. While still speedy, the focus on 8-bit Sonic in Sonic 2 has been shifted to more linear, precision-based platforming, an approach brought into focus by the series' MacGuffin, the Chaos Emeralds, here hidden in an obtuse location in each zone, rather than locked behind special stages. Most of that was due to hardware limitations. Until Sonic Chaos and Sonic Triple Trouble, that is, at which point they locked them behind special stages again. Yeah, again, as people gain more ability with the hardware, they start expanding out with what they can do with the hardware. Look at Mario Land 1, and then look at Mario Land 2 as an example, the golden coins. It's like night and day. Mario Land 1 feels like a game made for the NES, and Mario Land 2 feels like a game made for the SNES, despite the fact that they are both made for the exact same hardware. The more time a company has handle on a hardware, the more they're able to work around the limitations of that hardware. That's pretty normal. Now, it then goes on to go into Extremely Confused, the Saturn years. I'm not 100% certain if I would even consider them extremely confused, but okay. So the promise of a future Sonic probably sold Saturns, which is a bit of a shame considering it never got one. Yeah, that is true. Yes, you're screaming, it did get a version of Sonic 3D, as well as the racing spin-off Sonic R, but the Sonic title in this era was Sonic Jam. It was a compilation of the classics, which isn't exactly a great advertisement for your overpriced, easy-to-break new console. Aficionados are aware that planned and bizarre fisheye lens Sonic Extreme had a very troubled development at this time, but it looked a hot mess and never saw the light of day. Yeah, that is true. Outside the Saturn, there was this bizarre arcade Sonic the Fighters, but that one didn't scream, "Hi, I am the Sonic franchise, I know what I'm doing." It ran on the Fighting Vipers engine, which is also the Virtua Fighter engine, and was surprisingly good, though. Then, wait, hold on. But it's a spin-off game. Why does it have to say, I'm Sonic, and I know what I'm doing as a franchise? That's a spin-off game. Why does it need to? And that's another one of those games that, like, it wasn't really seen as that great early on, but it has been... People have been singing its praises now, especially with the Xbox re-release of it, bringing an extra character and shit. Like, people are starting to enjoy that game a lot more now for what it is. It's just a freaking wacky spectacle fight. Alright, now we have the Dreamcast years, which is technically when I got on board the Sonic train, so go ahead and type in the comment section right now. This is your nostalgia goggles talking, because I know that that's probably where you're going I accept whatever criticism you're going to throw at me. But confident failure, Sonic the Dreamcast years. Do you remember that scene in The Simpsons where Mr. Burns' doctor is demonstrating the fragile equilibrium of his patient's health with squiggly toys representing illnesses getting jammed in a mini doorway? Sonic Adventure is basically a game version of that. It's a game which is completely falling apart and fundamentally broken, but somehow just hangs together in a way that sees its wobbliness register as charmingly freewheeling rather than disgustingly unplayable. Alrighty then, let's... Hoo boy. I got some words about this one. Sonic Adventure is a lovely game. There is one aspect of Sonic Adventure that is fundamentally broken, and that is Big the Cat. And that's because Big the Cat's playstyle doesn't really belong in that kind of game. But if you look at Sonic Adventure based on the time it came out, you understand why it was made that way. To move away from Sonic Adventure for a second, though, I'll give you another game. A game that has aged surprisingly well, so that you can understand kind of where this is coming from. Take a game like Mario 64. Levels in Mario 64 feel almost random at a certain point. Like, a lot of those levels, there's geometry that's just slapped in, and some of the geometry in there feels like untextured shapes that would be not out of place in Bubsy 3D, and yet the game itself still runs, it is still fun, it is still playable, and it is a game that is a fundamental part of my childhood. I love Mario 64, but there's a lot of things in Mario 64 that you can tell are there because it was trying to show off everything the N64 could be capable of. That's what Sonic Adventure was trying to do as well. Show off what the Dreamcast could do. So, show off what the Dreamcast could do for, you know, bass fishing games. You have Big the Cat there. Show off what the Dreamcast could do for a third-person shooter. You have Gamma. Show what it can do with a high-speed platformer. You have Sonic. Show what it can do with a fucking helicopter sim. You have Tails. Show what an adventure game can feel like. You have Knuckles. Show what a stealth game can feel like. You have Amy. It has all these disparate parts because it's the purpose of the game was to showcase what the Dreamcast could do. And at the end of the day, you have a game that if you play through it as Sonic, is completely and totally fine. Like, it is some of the best Sonic has ever controlled in 3D. It is some of the best in terms of storytelling where Sonic is concerned. Not that the presentation is there, because this is a game made back when the only game we had with cinematic presentation really was Metal Gear Solid. There weren't that many other games doing this to the same level that something like Sonic Adventure was trying to do. But it has a very robust story, and one of the most emotionally gripping ones in the entire series, especially when you consider Gamma as a character. His entire arc is fucking heartbreaking. Story-wise, the game is perfectly fine. Control-wise, the game is perfectly fine. Even Big's shit, as out of place as it is, it controls fine. It works. Like, if you just wanted to play a fishing game with Big's shit, it would work perfectly fine. It just does. And there's nothing wrong with that. Now, I would prefer a Sonic Adventure that did not have a little bit of the fluff that was in Adventure, which is why I prefer Adventure 2. But when we're talking about Adventure, we are not talking about a broken game hanging on by spaghetti strings. We are talking about a competent masterpiece that has some flaws based on the age and the time in which it was made. But by this same logic, I would have to hit a game like Ocarina of Time for having unskippable dialogue that ran at a snail's pace, and I'm not going to fucking do that. Now, Sonic Adventure remains extremely fun to play. We're continuing with the article. Arguably more so than any of its more rigid follow-ups. Sonic Adventure 2, for example, is a far more polished and attractive title, but it's also a bit boring and rubbish if you ask us. Many disagree, of course, but we find it rather homogeneous. What the fuck is homogeneous about Sonic Adventure 2? And hold on, for something to be homogeneous, for there to be a semblance of homogeneity, the game has to have a product of comparison. What is it homogeneous to? When I talk about classes being homogeneous in World of Warcraft, I'm talking about the fact that it doesn't matter if I play an elemental shaman, any type of warlock, and any type of mage. They all feel the same to play because they are homogeneous. They have been balanced to the point of homogeneity. What's homogeneous about Sonic Adventure 2? Like, what about that game is not unique from most other games that came out around that time, and even games that have come out since? We have not had a game like Adventure 2 since it came out. We've not had a game like Adventure 2 when it was out, outside of the fact that they started adapting rail grinding into multiple games like Psychonauts and Jak and Daxter. So when you say the game's homogeneous, I'm gonna be stuck hanging up on this word. What the fuck do you mean when you say that? Now, you do admit that the game is more polished and attractive, cool, but when you say it's a bit boring and rubbish, again, I would like some criteria. By what way are you arguing that this game is boring and rubbish? I myself, as a kid, managed to get well over 400 hours out of that game on a single memory card, of which I had 3 with variable amounts of time in each memory card. Mostly because I was playing the game over and over again so that I could do stuff in the Chow Garden. And it's a game that, as an adult, I've been able to return to repeatedly. And, of course, there are some flaws that I've found, like I really don't like playing through Aquatic Mine and Meteor Herd. But it's no different than me looking at another classic game that has aged remarkably well, like Banjo-Kazooie, and hating going through Rusty Bucket Bay because of the oil room. Yeah, that room is absolutely terrible, and the designer who did that needs to get a phone call from the Geneva Convention because, dear God, that entire thing's a war crime. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to look at Rusty Bucket Bay and say, well, because of this, the entire game's garbage. Fuck this level. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. So despite there being some levels I really don't like in Adventure 2, the game on the whole is fine. Again, it's my favorite Sonic game of all time, so there's a bit of rose-tinted goggles here, but still, I don't think... I don't see where you get boring from there. And again, I guess I'm just stuck on the homogeneity part. Continuing on with the article, the most interesting thing about the adventure games is their complete and somewhat admirable in a way refusal to trade on past glories. Is it trade or tread? I don't... is there an editor required here? Good God. Not only are these not classic Sonic games, they're absolutely nothing like their forebears in almost any way besides the obvious loops, rings, etc. Oh boy! Now we have more ways in which the article's wrong. Okay, so... the open-endedness of Sonic Adventure... Let's talk about just playing as Sonic specifically, okay? Because that's the adaptation for the character we're talking about. The open-endedness of Sonic Adventure is like a 3D adaptation of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. With how big, open, and scrolling that game is in 2D, Sonic Adventure is that, but in 3D form. Because of the sheer freedom you have in that game to do what the fuck you will in the levels. Think about playing an Ice Cap Zone. How many different nooks and crannies and areas can you spin dash jump into freely in that game just by abusing the game's physics? Which is not a thing you have to glitch or anything. That's literally just a thing Sonic can do. Think about the myriad of pathways you can choose in places like Speed Highway. Like, you have all kinds of freedom in that game. You can jump around on skyscrapers and shit, and it's not like that's not a thing you were supposed to do in the first place. That's just one of the, like, 17,000 paths in that level. And that is very Sonic 3. But Sonic Adventure 2's level design is a lot more like Sonic 2. Sonic 2's level design is very straightforward. Levels are more linear than they were in the original Sonic, and they're more linear than they were in Sonic, or more linear than they were going to be in Sonic 3. Levels are very straightforward up until, you know, the very end of that game. There are multiple pathways, but they are still straight shots of just speedy gameplay. And that's what Sonic Adventure 2 feels like when you're playing as Sonic and Shadow. So when you say that they're nothing like their forebearers in any way except having the aesthetics, I just have to say we didn't play the same game. This feels like an article that was not written by somebody who played all of these games, like within the last year so that they could write this article with everything fresh in their mind. This feels like an article written by somebody who played these games years ago and is writing this based on memory. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at this next part. Throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. Sonic, the multi-platform wilderness years. Okay. Then the unthinkable happened. Sega dropped out of the console business and began bringing its most famous brands to its former rival systems. And hell followed. Sonic Heroes is a toilet. What? How is it a toilet? Wait, hold on. I can go off the rails about how I don't like playing as specifically Team Chaotix in that game. Because I don't. I really don't. But how is that game a toilet? It controls perfectly fine. The level design is competent, if not a little lengthy. The boss design is okay. About the only issues that I have with Sonic Heroes as a game are things like the game's feel. I don't like how squishy enemies feel when I hit them versus how crunchy they felt in Adventure 2. It has the same kind of squishy feeling that enemies have in Sonic Adventure 1, but in Heroes, those enemies, when you hit them, they have a health bar for some weird reason. Like, there's little design quirks in that game that I just don't like, and I would have preferred them have a little bit more polish so we could get a game that felt better. But when it comes to how the game runs, when it comes to even the game's story, what little of it there is, I mean, the game's perfectly serviceable. I don't see where you would get the idea that it's a toilet. Like, are there better games in the world? Yeah, but that's not the standard we use for judging any of the games we're judging right now. We judge games on their own merits. And on Sonic Heroes' own merits, it's a perfectly fine game. I even did a live thing with Sonic Heroes specifically, where me and Channel Pup just sat down and, went through Sonic Heroes because we had a disagreement about that game specifically. And every area that was mentioned as a hang-up for that game, I was able to breeze through, despite not having played the game in a decade, and it not being a game that I ever 100% completed even as a kid. But okay. Hello. But then they say it's a mere skid mark compared with the absolute rinse that saw the light of day in its very choppy period. It brings up Shadow the Hedgehog now. Again, Shadow the Hedgehog is a game built on Sonic Heroes engine, and it is a sloppy game. It really is. But it's not the worst thing in the world. I'm planning on doing a revisit of the game here in a little while. Also, there's a thing in the chat about, imagine not liking health bars. There wasn't a need for health bars in Sonic Adventure 1. Enemies died in one hit. There was no point to having them. I don't like enemies in Sonic having health bars, because they should die in one hit. Anyway, but so, for goodness sakes, ports of the Dreamcast games that were, in Adventure's case, even more broken. The wretched Sonic Riders and sequel. Okay, Sonic Riders. I have not actually heard terrible things about Sonic Riders. Okay, it's not a game that I can competently speak on, because it's not a game that I have sat down and played for any length of time outside of, passing fancies. But that is a game where people sing its praises all day fucking long. It's got a learning curve, from what I understand, if Liam Triforce's video is to be believed. But regardless of what the sequels do, mind, one of those sequels came out on the Xbox Kinect after this era. So, I don't know, when I'm reading this, all I have to ask is, what fucking game did you play? They say the awful storybook series of Secret Rings and Black Knight. Alright, no. I'm gonna do a playthrough of the storybook games. I'm gonna have to, because no. I'm sorry. You can have issues with Secret Rings based on the control scheme. I can understand that. The tutorial section at the beginning of the game, pretty awful. After you get past that point, though, it is a very, very competent, speedy game. Like, that is one of those games that I was able to go through and play through repeatedly and just enjoy. And Black Knight is just literally a super, super polished version of that game that plays better. I can understand if somebody doesn't like them, cool. But to say that they're poorly made games is just kind of incorrect. Like, there's some fluff in Black Knight that I don't think needs to be there, like the bartering with villagers and shit like that. But at the end of the day, Is it a fast game that controls well, and is it fun to play? Yes. So I don't see how those are awful games. Again, this feels like an article written by somebody who played these games years ago and is doing all of this off of memory, as opposed to doing what I generally do when I try to talk about a game, play through it, and then make content on it right afterwards. Also, Black Knight has one of the best Sonic stories, hands down, period. I'm sorry. One of the best characterizations of basically an older version of that character ever. And I would love to see it revisited. Continuing on. Then it goes on to say, the interesting Sonic Unleashed created a portrait of the series that truly had no idea what it wanted to be or what on earth it was doing. Wait, hold on. How, though? Okay, so every Sonic game at that point had a central gimmick. For Shadow the Hedgehog, it was guns and a branching story. For, I'm not going to talk about Sonic Riders because that's a spin-off game. Secret Rings was its control scheme. Flat out, its control scheme was the gimmick for that game. Black Knight, again, was the control scheme and the combat mechanic. Sonic Unleashed had a very, like, hyper-focused game. It had two things. One, an okay brawler, and two, a very competently made 3D to 2D platforming engine. Whether you played the game on the Wii and PS2, or you played the game on the 360 and PS3, whichever version of the game you got was a good game. Now, I know that journalists literally shat all over that game when it came out, and then sang the praises of the Wii version, strangely, and that was kind of weird to me as a kid. But despite that, if you want to talk about, like, universally loved Sonic games within the Sonic fandom, Unleashed is, like, Unleashed and Adventure 2 are, like, crown jewels in the Sonic fandom. So, again, I don't know what fucking game you played. I don't know what you did. Also, Unleashed, I'm just going to throw this out there, Unleashed is still one of the most beautiful games artistically that has ever been made, period. And that game pushed the hardware of the Xbox and PS3 to their very limits. The game still looks stellar today. Anyway, continuing on. Thankfully, throughout this period, there was a solid core of 2D titles for the Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS to keep things a little more on track. All three Sonic Advance games were a good time. Alright. I'm just going to say one word, and everybody who's a Sonic fan is going to know exactly what I mean when I say this. I feel like Dimps needs to be called here, because there are some things with those games that cause a lot of problems for a lot of people. I might like the Sonic Advance games, but still, there's some issues with Dimps' game design that I hold issue with. Not to mention Sonic Rush and Rush Adventure, which both offered high-quality running action. That said, even handhelds weren't entirely safe, with BioWare's appalling Sonic Chronicles wafting over the format like the gaseous aftermath of a plate of chili dogs. Alright, maybe this is going to fuck me up for life when I say this. This is probably going to be the thing that makes everybody hate me, like, universally. I didn't mind Sonic Chronicles. I really didn't. There's a lot of things about that game that are terrible. Its music is terrible. Its art direction is awful. But as far as, like, a game, it just feels like a Elite Beat Agents the RPG, and I'm not angry with that. I didn't hate the story that I got. I didn't hate that combat system. I just hated that the game was more grindy than a Sonic game should be. It looked ugly as sin, and it sounded ugly as sin. But oh, and a little something commonly known as Sonic 06 damaged the series' reputation forever. So, this is not an untrue statement, okay? I know that I can be the type of person that talks about Sonic 06 positively now, but when that game came out, like, when it came out, historically, that was, like, the black sheep. That was the thing everybody shat on. But everybody shat on Unleashed, too, when that came out. So, I don't know. Now, if we're talking about 06, like, at its core, what that game was at its core, I think it's perfectly fine at its core. And as evidence of that, apparently everybody's fucking loving the Project 06 mod right now. Which literally just redoes that game with polish. But it's the same assets, it's the same everything. Just polished. Done the way the game should have been done the first time. And yet, we're still gonna have to deal with this. We're gonna be dealing with this forever, apparently. I'm gonna have to do a video on Project 06. Anyway, continuing on. Boost Sonic, the multi-platform wilderness years, part 2, some semblance of coherence. So, you know, technically this began in Sonic Unleashed, right? And you had this here, but, you know, just chronology, my friend. Thank God this deluge of crap came to something of an end with Sonic Colors. Sonic Colors was a game that was universally praised when it came out. But playing it now, with the prospect of hindsight, it doesn't hold up as well as it did back then. Because the environment that it was brought out in is a lot different now. Now, I know that there's technically a counter to that when you bring up, you know, what Sonic Adventure was supposed to be. The difference is, Adventure is at least a fully 3D game. Colors is a 2D game with some 3D sections. And so it's a much easier game to get right. It is harder to fuck up a 2D game than it is to fuck up a 3D game. There's a million more variables that can go wrong in full 3D. But, continuing with the article itself, then a title with a shocking level of purity focus on the series seemed to have long forgotten what those things even were. Far be it from us to call Sonic Colors perfect, and it was and still is a well above average take on 3D Sonic. It's not a take on 3D Sonic. I'm getting so tired of seeing this point. This point right here, that Sonic Colors is a take on 3D Sonic, it's really not. The majority of that game takes place in 2D. The places that are 3D in that game are hallwayed. They're Crash Bandicooted to be 2D in design, 3D in aesthetic. It's not a take on a 3D Sonic game. It's barely a 3D Sonic game. So one that finally recognizes the strength of the games, that is to say, 3D Sonic traditional platforming stages, you'd think that they would be the focus of the preceding titles. Okay, we have another problem here. Sonic Colors doesn't know what the traditional strengths of Sonic were. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. I may not hate the game. And it may be one of those games that I played a lot when it first came out. And it may be a game that I can sing many of its praises if I need to. But, at the end of the day, if we look at what Sonic was, especially what you're categorizing are like the glory years of Sonic, where Sonic has the ability to go fast non-stop and do all the platforming shit that he wants to do, Sonic Colors is not that. Sonic Colors is a game that emulates a Mario title. Sonic Colors uses block platforming as a placeholder for the momentum-based gameplay that we were used to using. The pinball physics and everything that were hallmarks of those older games, those strengths of Sonic, those are completely absent in Colors. They're not there. So without any alternate playstyles or pointless diversionary minigames to waste time, it's just straight-up Sonic action. Something that was taken from the day stages in the otherwise mediocre Unleashed and expanded on, as well as in celebratory follow-up Sonic Generations. Okay, so at least they do acknowledge that their chronology of Boost began before they have the Boost era. Generations was a title that inarguably trades on nostalgia while still offering a good deal of meat on its bones for players to get stuck into. Okay, well at least they understand Generations is a good game, because it is. Generations has a better understanding of how to make 3D Sonic environments work than Colors could even hope to. Moreover, Generations doesn't do one of the cardinal sins that Colors does, which is Generations doesn't lock your controls behind specific areas in the environment that are context sensitive. If you want to drift in Generations, you just drift. If you want to quick step in Generations, you just quick step. If you want to do those things in Colors, you're not allowed to. The game doesn't let you because it's almost like it's scared to. Now, it says that there are some missteps in this era. Sonic 4 was a tantamount to a war crime for the gall in its name alone. We agree with that. The Sonic Boom games are best left unmentioned. I don't know. Okay, so I'd have to get with Channel Pup on this one, because I know that he's been going through the DS titles, and from what I understand, the DS versions of Sonic Boom are not actually that bad. And the Wii U game, yeah, the Wii U game is garbage. A lot of that comes down, a lot of that was Sega's fault. They didn't let the developer know until way late that they were going to be using CryEngine on Wii U, a console that really was not built with that engine in mind. But anyway, then Sonic Lost World was a misfire in most ways. Wait. Wait, what? Wait. Hold on. Okay, so, here's where we're going to have a conversation. You cannot praise Sonic Colors for being all the best things that a Sonic game needs to be, and then, in the same breath, call Sonic Lost World a misfire. Everything that Sonic... And we're gonna talk about Forces here in a second, too, because this kind of carries on to Sonic Forces. Sonic Lost World is Sonic as a Mario game. Sonic Colors is Sonic as a Mario game. Lost World controls a lot better in 3D than Colors does, but mainly Sonic Lost World is a very Mario-ized Sonic. Every level design quirk in Sonic Colors that you celebrate exists in Lost World, and every 3D section of Sonic Colors is expanded on immensely in Lost World. About the only real sin Lost World has, to me, aside from its story and presentation, is having a run button. But I ended up not minding it having a run button, because it made it a whole lot easier to platform with that game. But Lost World is a game that I would love to see a sequel to. I would love to see a sequel with that parkouring 2D, 3D engine that really had a better grasp on how to make Sonic work as a platformer first, and everything else second, more than Colors could ever hope to do. The amount of waiting and stopping and going that's in Colors, just, it wasn't present in my last playthrough of Lost World, which was like, what, 4 months ago? Certainly not close enough for me to speak with all the confidence that this article is speaking with, but at least close enough to where I could say that I at least played the damn game. So for the most part, this consistency is carried through to Sonic Forces, a widely derided game that this writer contends is pretty much fine. Particularly when you consider the vast waves of Dross fans have navigated before it. Okay, so the issue with Sonic Forces is it's barely a game. Sonic levels that are like 25 seconds long, when we're not talking about like an old, hard 2D game based on the very different mindset of creating levels from back then, I'm sorry, I just don't see it. Sonic Forces managed to do a bunch of things that don't make sense to me. They managed to break classic Sonic, despite Generations basically getting that mostly right. They managed to break almost everything where Sonic's animations were concerned. They managed to give us a story that tried way too hard and shot way too low. Is it a bad game in a sense that I couldn't hand it to a kid who doesn't know any better and they wouldn't enjoy it? Probably not. So I guess maybe we have to agree that it's pretty much fine. I would say it's mediocre. I wouldn't say fine, though. That's where I would sit. Now it goes on to Future Sonic. Of course, many will disagree with the conclusion drawn here about what, statistically speaking, are probably some of their favorite games. And that's totally fine. We're looking at the series in a more detached way than enthusiasts would do. And we've missed out a lot, too. Sonic's not just about the games, but multiple beloved comic book universes, Archie, Fleetway, IDW, TV cartoons with adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic SatAM, Underground, later Boom, as well as many other deviations within the franchise. each of which is chronicled more exhaustively by the fan base than we realistically have space for. We'd like to think that Sonic's success comes in waves, and the upcoming Sonic Rangers has a chance of once again offering a consistent experience for fans, though it's quite likely to be yet another brand new direction in the series that's really struggled for identity at times. Nonetheless, we're still quite fond of the silly blue sod, and we just want what's best for him, which means we really just think he needs to pick a lane. So, I want what's best for Sonic too. Understandable. Here's the thing, though. I feel like when you're going to do a detailed breakdown of multiple Sonic games, doing so in a detached way, the way you're doing right now, I don't feel like that's really fair to those games. Now, I'm not saying don't be objective. Please be objective. But when you're going to talk about these games and their legacy, the least you could do, again, and I'm assuming that maybe you did, but it doesn't feel like you did based on what I'm reading here. Also, Tea with the Goblins, thank you very much for the 50 bits. But from what I'm reading here, it feels like somebody who just didn't play all of these games before writing this article. They're basing this mostly on what other people's opinions have been of Sonic over time. So I guess that leaves me with a couple of conclusions. One, this is an article written in a detached sense. So the vitriol that I'm seeing from Sonic fans on Twitter, I understand, but at the same time, I think needs to be a little less. Because this is not a Sonic fan speaking about the series as a Sonic fan. This is somebody speaking detached. Now, I don't want them covering it in that way. I would prefer them covering it a little more in-depth instead of just going, Sonic had his Rust transition into 3D, which is what seems to always be the case. But I can understand, and I am at least thankful that they admitted that this is being written in that more detached way. That gives us the opportunity to see what is really happening here. It is somebody from outside the fandom speaking about the games and their history. And some of this stuff is based very much on when those games came out. So, like, Sonic R was not seen as good as it is now when it came out. Sonic Colors was seen as immensely better than what it is right now when it came out. You know, Sonic Unleashed was heavily derided when it came out. And I think that's what the article's trying to do, but I don't agree with that. Because we're not writing this article in 2008. We're not writing this article in 2011. We're writing this article in 2021. We need to look at these games as how they're seen now. And most of this really feels like how these games were seen when they came out, not necessarily how the opinions have changed within that zeitgeist. And it's not just about individuals having their favorite Sonic games derided. There's always going to be people who like stuff that is objectively bad in one way or another. This is about the fact that, largely, this community has moved on from some of the opinions and habits that are being showcased in the article here. But that is as much as I can handle where that's concerned. The article then has a little, like, what's your favorite Sonic era voting poll thing. I'm not too terribly concerned with that. I hope that the next Sonic game is good at the very least, because it feels to me like one thing that happens with games journalism where Sonic's concerned is he's a punching bag. At the end of the day, he's a punching bag. And I don't want that to be the case. I really would like Sonic games going forward to just function better, to be better. Not because I can't handle another Unleashed or another Colors, because I enjoyed those games just fine despite my grievances with Colors right now. I'm tired of gaming journos doing this shit. I want to live in a world where Sonic 06 got all the polish it needed to be like Project 06, and we never went down this timeline. Where Unleashed was a fully fleshed out package and spent less time with the Werehog and more time in the day stages in a more even way, so that people weren't bitching as much. I want to live in a world where Sonic Mania 2 was already out, despite the fact that the game came out in 2017, and really could have come out by now. Could be a future topic on Sunset City, who knows? I want to live in that world. I really do. And I don't know what it's going to take to live in that world again. But, with that said, if you enjoyed this content, despite how long-winded it was, let me know in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. What's your opinions on Sonic? How do you feel this character has evolved over time? Do you think that there's any issues with Sonic that need to be resolved? Of course there are, and of course you do. So go ahead and get typing in that comment section so we can start a conversation. With that said, though, if you enjoyed this content, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Follow over on Twitch, where all these videos are recorded. And as always, everyone, insert end of video tagline here.
Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. It really means a lot to me. If you want access to behind-the-scenes content for the channel, please consider checking out my Patreon. I do weekly vlogs over there, where I give real-life updates to what's going on behind the scenes on the channel, stuff that you don't really get over here, and even on Twitch. Patreon also helps the channel's stability a whole lot. Without Patreon, I wouldn't be able to do this at all. Especially with the kind of content that I do, neither YouTube nor Twitch are the most stable sources of income. If you are a $20 and up patron, then you will be featured on the ending slides as shown in the beginning of the end credits. If you want to catch the streams where all this content comes from, then consider heading over to Twitch and following. And if you want to continue watching over here on YouTube, maybe consider clicking one of the end screen videos. And once again, I want to thank you so much for spending your time with me over on my channel. I wouldn't be able to do literally anything that I'm doing over here on YouTube without each and every one of you. So, thank you.